All righty. So this is now the official part. Hello, hello, everybody. I am so happy that you have made the time to be with me here tonight. I'm very excited. I'm a little bit nervous because I'm tinkering with some technology that I haven't used before. You shall see soon. Okay, but it will be a lot of fun. I know many of you, which really touches my heart. And those of you who are now coming in, I'm still letting people in. And those of you who don't know me, now you see my face, a little less glamorous than my website, but still authentic like my website. I like to think. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome.
Thanks.
So, I will tell you a little bit about myself and about my journey. Okay. I will give you some case examples, some things that I experienced in my own household with some of my clients. And then I show you some visuals that I worked on for a long time. I hope it comes across as fancy schmancy. I don't know. We shall see. And then we have a lot of time for Q&A and for discussion, right? And comments because we got some oldies and goodies here, meaning people who have done the training, people who have worked with me. And before I tell you my story, I wanted to say something to all of you because this isn't just me doing the theory. This is also us applying some principles here. Okay. And I know that there are some of you who very recently lost animals. And all of us just hold this in your hearts. Okay? If any of you gets emotional, this is a safe space, even if you haven't lost an animal recently. But if you feel things well up, let it well up. I often say tears are nothing else but liquid love, unless I cut onions. Different story. Okay? So, but just know there are people here who recently, very, very recently suffered losses. And as I present the theory of the work that I do, that I'm so, so passionate about, we can actually apply our hard skills to this space here. Does that sound good to you? Yeah, you can just do it in your own way. Okay? So during what I am doing here, I will not be able to check the chat. So if you have any questions, please save them for later when we have discussion time, Q&A, and what have you. And then you can do a little hand raise emoji, or you can just do this because we are a small live crowd here. And then you can unmute yourself and ask your question or make a comment. Does that sound good to you also? Okay, good. Now I need to look at some of my notes here. Um, yeah, I think this is good for now. So, my name is Ute. As many of you know, I'm an animal communicator and I'm a pet death doula. And I do a lot of work with animals at the end of life. And I also facilitate a pet hospice and death doula workshop or death doula training, call it what you want to call it. And we got three people here who did it. One who is the gold medal winner, that's Jane. I think, Jane, you have done it 5 times. Shannon, you have done it once. Ava has done it once. So many more opportunities if you choose to do that. I'm joking. All right. But why am I so passionate about it? First off, take a deep breath before I speak further, because just the word death goes like, huh, okay? And I want to say my experience with this work is actually about living better, living with more presence, living with more presence when I experience grief, when I accompany others when they are grieving. It isn't about doom and gloom. I'm not doing Disney version trainings, but it is really about living more mindfully and more consciously. And since I said consciously, I have to remember that I need to spotlight myself because that's another thing here, where then you see my bobblehead in the middle of everything. Okay. Apologies for that. Okay. So keep this in mind that you can live more consciously when you do this work, whether it is as a volunteer, as a pet owner, as a spiritual practitioner, as a helper, and I don't know what else you're doing, a dog walker, I don't know. And now I see myself, which is really strange, but that's what I need to do now that I spotlight myself. Several years ago, someone approached me locally, a dog trainer, and she requested to meet with me. And she said, there is nothing out there where we can honor animals when they cross over. I know you do hospice work. I know you're an animal communicator, la di la di la. And her work is very practical. It's literal dog training. And she also does a lot of volunteer work for local rescue organizations. And then she said, it's really annoying. People are falling apart when their dog dies, their horse, their cat, you name it, you name it. And they don't know what to do with themselves. And then I felt like this is an opportunity. If someone who doesn't know me wants to have coffee with me to say, is there something we can do? That is a hint for me. And that is when I just designed my first training. This was late 2017. It was a one-day training. And I just got my feet wet. I learned a lot. And then I thought, no, we need more time. We need to do a whole lot more, right? It was really amazing how much interest there was, how much pain people felt. Also, as practitioners, as animal care facilitators, and also pet guardians or pet owners, right? And I want to say that I find the death of an animal is much more lonely for many of us than the death of a human family member. Most of us have like systems, families, religion, churches, communities, chosen family, partners, children, you name it. And we have some kind of rituals for burial or cremation or green burial. There are so many variants of the theme. We have nothing for animals except the pat on the back. I'm so sorry, Fluffy died. And then most people move on with their life and we enter the gray zone, right? With humans, we have like anniversaries, celebrations of life, you name it, you name it. And that is one of the things that I'm very passionate about also. Interestingly enough, it's just one aspect of the work that means a lot to me. Interestingly enough, 2 days before my very first training, one of my cats got diagnosed with cancer. On a Thursday, the training was on a Saturday. So I rented a workshop space at the time. I walk into this space, highly emotional people, some people very guarded. I don't want to feel this. We keep it clinical. And then I facilitate this with the awareness that one of my cats just got diagnosed, right? So that was a really interesting baptism for me. Yeah. And then from there on out, I initially thought my vet might have mixed up diagnostic things, and it was not true. He did have cancer. He just looked totally gorgeous. He just draped himself on the couch and stopped eating. And other than that, you would not have known that anything was wrong with him, at least for the first few months after his diagnosis, right? And so that was the initiation for me when I started doing this work. The true initiation to work with death and dying was one of my soul dog Shiva. Shiva was in the ICU. He came to me as a middle-aged, beat-up pit bull. I show you a photo in a moment. He was not well, and then the end of his life was very dramatic and very intense, and it went from 10% sick and concealed to he went down hard. He was in the ICU of a local specialty hospital. They wanted to euthanize him there, and I said, no, my dog will come home. He needs to die at home. And we brought him home. And Shiva was such an enlightened being, beat up, had a shitty life, forgive my French, and he died here in my home. And I had all of these ideas of how I would sit vigil and do this and do that. And he goes like, get on with it. This is your cue. You need to do this work and don't just talk about it or stay in the closet about it. Okay? So so there were two initiations when I actually did the first workshop. And then prior, my dog Shiva, the way he died, the way he exited, and how he allowed me to get him out of that steel kennel at the ICU hospital. He could have easily checked out there, and I was just pleading with him, and he said, okay, just get me right away. And we got him home. Okay. So that's my personal saga. I have many, 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 many stories that I can share with you. And before I dive into that, I wanted to give you 5 whys. Why would we do this work? And there are probably more. And there are different whys for each of you. And some of you who have worked with me, if you want to share at some point, please feel welcome. Okay. And now I got to look at my notes here for a moment. So, why would we do this work? Reason number one, I want you and your animals or your clients to be in less of a panic and less of a adrenaline overload. I want less panic and more peace. And when you consider this work, whether you do it professionally or for your own inner growth, once it's really intense with a life and death situation, it is much harder to regulate your nervous system to have like a balanced approach to the death of your animal. Would you agree with this assessment? More or less. I can't see all of you. I'm just seeing some heads nod, and I'm assuming some of you do it too, and I don't see you right now. Okay? So I want humans, whether they are professional, whether they do it for self-development, whether they are spiritual people, I want you to be more regulated when you are facing that. That doesn't mean you don't feel sadness, sorrow, grief, but I want you to be more regulated. That's my biggest why. The next biggest why, there is no hierarchy, is I want our animals to have a chance to have a more peaceful ending. Okay? And sometimes we have the luxury of having time, like with my cat Marlowe, who got diagnosed. There was time. I knew he had cancer. I knew it would take time. With Shiva, it was like bam. Okay, I knew something was very wrong. Did I know he was going to check out a few days afterwards? Not really. And then he said, okay, sister, I'm out of here. Okay. So I want that to be more peaceful. I was lucky in that I could really get him out of that hospital. And I would always try to do that again if I have a chance. Sometimes we don't have the time. I know that, but I kind of did, and I'm forever grateful. So the other why for this kind of work is I want you to be more in the knowing, in your inner wisdom. I want you to be more confident and not just guessing. Is it right? Is it now? Is it then? We always guess and second guess, and we hear quality of life. We hear all of the things. None of that is wrong, by the way, but it can be overwhelming. And I'd rather support you, if those of you who choose to do this work, to hone your intuition, to feel more confident, to make decisions with your animals, in conjunction with your animals, if that makes sense to you. Okay? The next why is a big one. Many of us don't live by ourselves. We have partners, we have children, we have ex-partners, we have some people have joint custody of animals. I mean, there are all these different variables of what our life situations are. And I'm a big fan of kids. I love children. I love working with families who have children. Children are often so enlightened when the family pet is about to die. And I can say that I had the privilege many times to work with families who had children, and we could include the children based on the value system of the family in a way that was absolutely appropriate for the kids. And when mom and dad, or mom and mom, or dad and dad, or separation or whatever, where the adults in the room said, this was so beautiful that our kids could be noble helpers. And let me tell you, children are noble by nature. We just get all corrupted as we become adults. And then we have to do workshops like this one, maybe. I don't know. Okay. So, but when I have a family with children, young children, what can they do where the children are part of the journey of the family dog, the family cat, the better fish? We worked with a fish the other day. It was a very, very big deal. Fish don't live quite as long as you probably know, most of the little ones at least, you know? And then the why number 5, and there are more whys, you might have your own, right? Is if you feel a calling to incorporate this work into your profession as a whatever you do, right? I say that is awesome. You can custom tailor it to what you are doing. I can also tell you compassion alone is not enough. We also need competence. We need communication skills. And that looks different for each of us. But compassion alone can make you really ungrounded, or you bleed over, or we project and do all of the things. Compassion without competence is not enough if you want to incorporate this work at some point into what you are doing. And there's a broad spectrum of what I have seen people do. You know, so there is no one lane. So what I do is my flavor, and you might do something entirely different. Or you might do it for a while, and then you say, you know what, I'm done with clients. I'm doing it just for my own growth. Or I work mainly with humans, which is my source of revenue. But wait, they also have animals, and they fall apart in my human sessions because the animal passed or the animal is very ill. Does it make sense? Okay. Let me look at my notes here just for a moment. So, let me now do the high-techy stuff. I want to show you some visuals, and that kind of reiterates some of what I've been talking about, but I believe that maybe for some of you, it's easier also when you see visuals. Okay, so bear with me, please, for a millisecond. I have to do something on the back end for a moment. Ha! Oh, I have to do it while we are on the call. Hold on here. I have to do it while I share my screen. I'm sorry. Okay, so bear with me. Almost there. And then I do this. Yeah, I did it. Okay, this is the first slide. And this is my dog Shiva and I on August 23rd, 2007, 2 p.m. in the afternoon. And an hour later, he took his last breath. This is on my living room floor. And this is my soul dog and me during his last hour in his body. And then I have here one of my favorite quotes, courtesy of Uta Love's Beautiful Quotes. I really feel this is true, and it could not be more true with my boy, who is one of my helpers when I do animal communication. So, and here you see some of the things that I talked about before, why I believe this work matters. By the way, this is my dog Jonah. And you might not believe me when I say this to you. There is a long story about this particular photo, but this is Jonah right before he died, too. And Jonah prepared himself. His bonded dog wife, Salila, had crossed over a few days before, and Jonah really wanted to be in my backyard. And this was in September of 2012. And this is my boy being absolutely illuminated before he jumped across the big divide. And here you see in writing what I told you before. I believe that this work matters because it will be less panicky for us when we face end-of-life decisions or support others in loved ones, family members, and clients. We will also have in the training, you will learn more about how you see signs so that you can discern more objectively, or in a more neutral way, I should say, what your animal actually needs. And the goal is for most of us to have peaceful goodbyes instead of traumatic losses. I know for a fact not every goodbye is entirely peaceful. But when in the workshop, we'll also talk about how we can retroactively support our loved ones to have peace afterwards as much as it works for them. So, and this is the showstopper slide that I worked on the longest. The workshop is at the end of June. It's live online. If you choose to come and you can't attend every single session, I would be considering to record portions, but not everything, because I don't want people's personal sharings to be distributed across the internet. So, and this is another one of my little stinkers here on the left, the world famous Pablo, when he was still very cheeky and not that sick. And yes, you will learn to stay grounded and present during vigil. And the second part is very important, I think, learning to discern. And that is a process that doesn't happen in one day. What does your animal need versus what your fear is telling you? Okay. So next slide. And this is Toddy a few days before he passed. This was in 2015. So in the workshop, we talk both about natural death and euthanasia with compassion. So I cover both scenarios. I'm very familiar with both ends of the spectrum. We learn how can we hold space for others without burning out, a huge deal for most of us in the helping professions, or even if you have kids and a partner. How can you hold space for others without burning out? Again, not an overnight thing to learn. It wasn't for me, I should say. Is it learnable? I think so. Does building community help? Possibly. And then, as I alluded to earlier, we will also spend some time during the workshop on what could meaningful rituals for closure look like for you. And there will be many examples that I will share in the workshop and that you will also share once you get some time to work on it. Okay? So, this is my cat Esme, who is still with us. And yes, she is as gorgeous as she looks there, and she knows it. And was raised by dogs, but is all cat. Not that you asked, but you're welcome. And Who is this training for? For people like you who have been or are going to navigate end of life decisions. And truth be told, most of us experience this multiple times. Most of us have more than one animal, might have another animal, have friends with animals. So it is really something that is part of the fabric of most of our lives. Yeah. And then people like myself do this often, animal communicators, healers, energy workers, Reiki masters, shamanic practitioners, and so on and so forth. Groomers, pet sitters, pet care, other care, excuse me, other care professionals. And then anyone who wants to be brave and support others. And you don't need to have a PhD in hospice or grief specialties. What you need is your courage and your willingness to encounter this. So, one of my pet peeves, the real world application, communication skills. We spent quite a bit of time on that too. I won't give you too many spoilers. I just can say that I have seen many eager, compassionate helpers and spiritual practitioners really project a lot onto the grieving person. And I will give you scenarios where you can practice holding space in a skillful way. And we talk about that in the training also. And then also ethical and other complexities. And, some people have very strong beliefs about the pros and cons, moral pros and cons of euthanasia versus natural death. We talk about that. And then how can you sustain your energy when you are encountering this in the long term, either in your own family, with loved ones, or with clients? And this is my dog Gunnar, who is currently right across from me sleeping on the floor. And yes, he looks as cute as he is in his picture. He's actually cuter for real. So, and here is a little bit of a summary again. Yeah. So if you feel even a little bit of a pull, right? The workshop might be absolutely amazing if you want to support your own animals, if you feel drawn to this, if you want to expand your skill set. Some of you might want to be a death doula, or if you just want to facilitate a more peaceful, energetic container for those that are with you. Okay? So, almost done with the visuals here. Okay? So, if this resonates, and I have a whole lot of questions for you, of course, you can do the workshop, right? Or you can think about it. Or you can talk to me with questions. In a moment, you get some links in the chat. Not quite yet, but in a moment. And then just sit with things. And I extended the early bird registration for the workshop through April 11th so that you have time to mull it over if this is what you would like to do. And now, a strange thing happening here again. So this is end of my lecture. And now I want to do something a little different. And I don't quite know yet. Hold on. Wow, how do I do this? Okay, now I remove my spotlight and I want to see all of you again. So please take another deep breath, or one or two or 1,000, please. Yeah, roll your shoulders, whatever it is, wiggle your buttocks, whatever you need to do. And since we started, there is Christine and there's Mandy. Hi, hi, hi. Nice to see you. Um, and I got so many notes here, guys. I over prepared. I really over prepared. So let me ask you this, and you can just raise your hand. How many of you have an animal in your life right now? Okay, you win. You're the majority. How many of you have lost an animal recently or not so recently? How many of you lost an animal? And did I raise my own hand? Oh my God, I have a hand emoji there. Never mind. How many of you wished that they would have been more prepared energetically for what actually occurred? Yeah, back back when, yes. And then how many of you who are spiritual healers, animal practitioners, have had experiences where you felt underprepared to support people on their hospice journey with their animals? Yeah, also very common. Yeah. So, okay. So I'm just looking at my 100,000 notes. God, I think I think I covered it. They just gave me so I had one more thing when I thought about what does it mean for you for me to talk about this work that I'm obviously absolutely crazy passionate about. And if I were to label it as a general label, I would say I want you to develop compassionate resilience. Have compassion, have an open heart, and also develop resilience. That looks different for each of us, okay? We don't all have the same signature, okay? But that would be my wish for every single person here, whether you have done this work, whether you want to do it, whether you want to do it again, whatever, whatever, okay? And now